Elder Kova stood at the great window of the council chamber and watched her world die. Below, the capital city of Valaris Prime burned. Smoke rose from 1,000 fires. The sky, once bright and blue, now glowed red from the flames and the enemy ships that hung above like dark predators. She was old now. Her silver skin had dulled with age, and her once strong hands trembled. But her mind remained sharp enough to understand that her people had reached their end. The Krath had come 6 months ago. First, they took the outer colonies. The Valari had fought, but their weapons were meant for defense, not war. The Valari built things. They grew food. They wrote poetry and made music. They were not warriors. The Krath were warriors. They lived for conquest. They had crushed 12 civilizations before the Valari. Now they wanted Valaris Prime, the homeworld, the last refuge. Elder Kova, said Orin, a young guard who stood at her side. His voice shook with fear. The eastern defense grid has fallen. The Krath will be at the city walls by morning. Kova nodded slowly. She had expected this. And the distress signals? Has anyone answered? Orin looked down at his feet. No, Elder. The Salkari said they cannot help. The Theran Empire said the Krath are too powerful. The Merchant Guild of Pax offered to negotiate our surrender for a fee. Kova felt something break inside her chest. But she did not let it show on her face. She had sent messages to 17 different civilizations. 17 different peoples who traveled the stars, who had power and weapons and ships. Not one would help. She understood why. The Krath Empire was vast and terrible. To fight them meant risking everything. Better to let the Valari die alone than to face the Krath's anger. We are abandoned, Orin said quietly. Yes, Kova agreed. We are alone. Outside, another building exploded. The Krath were not even in the city yet. But their ships fired from orbit, destroying whatever they wished. They were taking their time. They enjoyed the fear they caused. Kova had watched the recordings of what the Krath did to the other colonies. They did not just conquer. They broke spirits. They made examples. When they took a world, everyone in the galaxy knew about it. Should we evacuate the civilians to the underground shelters? Orin asked. Yes, Kova said. It will not save them, but it may give them a few more days. She turned from the window. The council chamber was empty now. The other council members had fled or died. Only Kova remained because someone had to stay. Someone had to witness the end of their people. Her footsteps echoed on the stone floor as she walked to the communication console. It still blinked with the automatic distress signal. Still sending its plea into the void of space. Still hoping for an answer that would never come. Kova reached out to turn it off. There was no point in wasting power anymore. Her finger hovered over the button. Then the console exploded with light and sound. Kova jumped back, her old heart hammering. The screen filled with symbols she did not recognize. The language was strange, harsh, made of sounds the Valari throat could not make. What is it? Orin rushed to her side. I do not know, Kova said. Another species. But not one I have seen before. The message repeated. The same strange symbols. Over and over. Then, the screen changed. It showed a star map. It showed Valaris Prime. And it showed ships, many ships, moving toward her world at incredible speed. Are they Krath reinforcements? Orin asked, his voice full of horror. Kova studied the map. No. They come from a different direction. From. That is the edge of known space. No one lives there. Then who are they? Before Kova could answer, the entire building shook. Not from an explosion, but from something else. A vibration that came from the sky itself. Kova and Orin ran to the window. Other Valari emerged from the shelters, looking up. Even the Krath ships seemed to pause their bombardment. The sky tore open. That was the only way Kova could describe it. Space itself seemed to split apart. And through the wound in reality, ships emerged. Not small ships. Not even large ships. These were giants. metal mountains that moved through the stars. They were like nothing Kova had ever seen. Brutal and powerful, covered in weapons, marked with symbols in that same harsh language. There were dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The Krath fleet, which had seemed so massive and terrible, suddenly looked small. What are they? Orin whispered. The new ships did not answer. They did not send messages. They simply moved into position above Valaris Prime, placing themselves between the planet and the Krath fleet. One of the Krath battleships fired. A massive energy beam, hot enough to burn through a mountain, struck the lead ship of the newcomers. The beam hit the ship's shields and scattered like water hitting stone. The ship did not even slow down. Then the newcomers fired back. Kova had seen the Krath's weapons. She had watched them destroy cities. But this was different. This was violence on a scale she could not comprehend. The space between the fleets lit up like a sun. Krath ships exploded or broke apart or simply vanished. In less than 5 minutes, a dozen Krath vessels were gone. The rest of the Krath fleet broke formation and retreated to a higher orbit. They had not expected resistance. They had not expected anyone to challenge them. Kova's communication console came alive again. This time, the message was in the Valari language, though the accent was strange and mechanical. Valari Council. This is Commander Tay of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Prepare to receive ground forces. Earth? Kova said aloud. I have never heard of Earth. Neither have I. Orin said. He was shaking. But now it was not from fear. It was from hope. But they came. Elder Kova. Someone actually came. Kova watched as smaller ships began to detach from the giants in orbit. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Falling toward the planet like a metal rain. She did not know who these humans were. She did not know why they had come when everyone else had refused. But as she watched their ships descend, as she saw the Krath fleet scattering in confusion, she felt something she had not felt in months. She felt hope. Send a message to all shelters. Kova said, her voice steady for the first time in days. Tell our people that help has arrived. Tell them to hold on. Kova said, 24-3. Kova said 4-3. 24-3. Kova said 4-3. Kova said 4-3. Kova said 4-3. Kova said 4. Yes, Elder. Orin said, already moving to obey. Kova looked back at the sky, at the impossible ships from Earth, at the warriors who had crossed the galaxy to answer a call that everyone else had ignored. Who are you? She whispered. And why did you come? Soon, she would have her answer. Soon, she would learn what it meant when Earth's warriors descended from the sky. Commander Tay stood in the launch bay of the EDS Horizon and looked at the faces of his warriors. 2,000 men and women in combat armor. Weapons ready, eyes hard. They had trained for this, they had prepared, but training was not the same as war, and Tay knew that some of them would not be coming back. Listen up, Tay said, his voice carried by the ship's speakers to every soldier in the bay. The Valari sent a distress call 3 weeks ago. 17 civilizations heard it. 17 said no. They said the Krath were too dangerous. They said it was not their problem. They said the Valari were already dead. He paused, letting his words sink in. We're humans. We don't abandon people who need help. We don't calculate odds and decide someone isn't worth saving. When someone calls for help, we answer. Always, the soldiers nodded. Some were young, on their first deployment. Others were veterans who had fought on a dozen worlds. But they all understood. This was what separated humanity from the rest of the galaxy. Humans helped, even when it was hard, even when it was dangerous. The Krath think they're the toughest species in this galaxy, Tay continued. They've conquered 12 civilizations. They've never lost. Today, we're going to teach them what happens when they meet humans. A roar went up from the soldiers. They slammed fists against armor. A sound like thunder in the metal bay. Tay looked to his right. Captain Hai stood there, checking her tablet, reviewing the tactical data. She was the smartest person Tay knew, a master of strategy. If anyone could figure out how to win this fight, it was her. Targets locked, Hai said calmly. We've identified the main craft positions. Heavy concentrations around the capital city and the spaceport. Estimates put their ground forces at about 50,000. And we have 10,000, Tay said. Yes. But we're humans. That should be enough. Tay smiled. Hai never doubted. That was why he trusted her. Behind them, Pilot Wu was doing final checks on his dropship. Wu was crazy, in the best way. He could fly through anything, storms, enemy fire, exploding moons. If you needed to get somewhere impossible, Wu would get you there. Commander, Wu called out, giving a thumbs up. My bird's ready. I'll get you to the ground in one piece. Probably. Probably? Tay asked. Well, I'm being honest. Wu grinned. The Krath have a lot of guns pointed at the sky. Then dodge better, Tay said. The warning lights turned red. 30 seconds to launch. Tay activated his helmet and sealed his armor. Around him, 2,000 soldiers did the same. The bay doors began to open. Beyond them was space. And beyond that was Valaris Prime. Burning and desperate. Remember the doctrine, Tay said over the squad channel. We're not here to fight fair. We're here to win. Use everything. Every trick. Every advantage. Make them afraid. Yes, sir, the soldiers shouted back. The bay doors opened fully. The planet filled Tay's vision. All units, Tay said. Drop. The soldiers launched. 2,000 armored humans fell from orbit like a meteor shower. The Krath spotted them immediately and opened fire. The sky lit up with energy weapons and missiles. But humans had good armor and better reflexes. Tay twisted in the air, dodging a missile that would have killed him. Around him, other soldiers did the same, weaving through the fire, falling faster and faster toward the ground. Tay's targeting system locked onto a Krath command post. Perfect. He adjusted his trajectory and fell straight toward it. The Krath at the post looked up. Tay could see the surprise on their faces through his helmet's enhanced vision. They had never seen anything fall from orbit and survive. Tay hit the ground at terminal velocity. His armor absorbed the impact, and the ground beneath him cracked and cratered. He came up with his rifle already firing. The Krath were big, bigger than humans, with thick armor-like skin and 4 arms. They carried heavy weapons that could punch through concrete. They looked terrifying. Tay shot the first one between the eyes. The second one tried to raise its weapon, but Tay was faster. He moved like water, like wind, closing the distance and driving his combat knife into the creature's throat. Around him, his squad landed. Sergeant Han hit the ground so hard he created a small crater. Han was built like a boulder. Strong and unbreakable, he carried a heavy weapon that most soldiers couldn't lift. Clear the perimeter, Han roared, his weapon spitting fire. Lieutenant Jay landed on top of a Krath vehicle, rode it like a wild animal, then jumped off and threw a grenade into its engine. The vehicle exploded. Jay was young but deadly, fast in a way that came from instinct rather than training. Within 60 seconds, the command post was theirs. Command, this is Tay. Drop zone Alpha secured, Tay reported. Copy that, Commander. He's voice came through. She was still in orbit, watching everything from above, directing forces like a chess master. Drop zone. Beta is under heavy fire. Lieutenant J, I'm sending you coordinates. There's a Valari refugee convoy pinned down 2 kilometers from your position. On it. Jay responded immediately. Tay watched as Jay and his unit sprinted away, moving faster than the Krath expected. Humans were smaller than most species, but they were fast, and they never stopped. They had evolved as persistence hunters, animals that chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. The Krath were about to learn what that meant. Medic Sue, set up a field hospital in the command post, Tay ordered. Yes, sir, came the reply. Sue was calm, under fire. Always calm. She had steady hands and a steady heart. She would treat anyone who needed help, even the enemy. A Krath soldier, wounded but alive, tried to crawl away. Sue moved to him immediately, checking his injuries. "Easy," she said, though the Krath probably couldn't understand her. "I'm not going to hurt you." The Krath looked at her with confusion. In its experience, warriors did not help the enemy. "Sir, why are we helping them?" one of the younger soldiers asked. "Because we're not them," Tay said simply. "We're better." The battle raged around them. More dropships landed, bringing supplies and reinforcements. Pilot Wu's ship came down in a controlled crash, sliding across the ground and coming to rest just meters from the command post. Wu climbed out, somehow still grinning. "See? One piece. I told you. Your ship is on fire," Tay pointed out. "It'll buff out." More reports came in. Sniper Un had set up on a high building and was picking off Krath officers from a kilometer away. Each shot was perfect. Lethal. The Krath didn't even know where the death was coming from. Engineer Na had already hacked into a captured Krath war machine and reprogrammed it. Now it was firing on its former allies, sowing chaos and confusion. The Krath forces were larger, but they were used to enemies who fought in predictable ways. The Valari had been defensive, static, easy to corner and crush. Humans fought differently. They were everywhere and nowhere. They used terrain. They used psychology. They made the Krath afraid. And fear was something the Krath had never felt before. Tay received a message on his personal channel. It was Elder Kova, the Valari leader. "Commander Tay, this is Elder Kova. I do not know how to thank you. You came when no one else would." "We're not done yet, Elder," Tay said. "But we will be. Just keep your people safe and let us handle the fighting." "Why?" Kova asked. "Why did you come? What do you want from us?" Tay looked around at his soldiers. At the Valari beginning to emerge from their shelters. At the burning city that they would save. "We don't want anything," Tay said. "You asked for help. That's enough." There was silence on the line. Then Kova's voice, thick with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you." Tay closed the channel and turned to his soldiers. "All right, warriors. The Krath have held this city for too long. Time to take it back. Move out." The humans advanced, and the Krath, for the first time in their history, began to retreat. Captain Hai sat in the command center of the EDS horizon, surrounded by screens showing data from the battle below. Every soldier was a dot on her map. Every enemy position was marked. She saw the whole battlefield like a living thing, breathing and shifting. She was good at this. Better than good. She could see patterns where others saw chaos. She could predict enemy movements before they happened. Some people called it genius. Hai called it practice. "Commander Tay, you have Krath reinforcements moving to your position from the north," he said into her headset. "Estimate 300 soldiers, heavily armed." "Copy that." Tay's voice came back, calm despite the sound of weapons fire in the background. "What do you recommend?" Hai smiled. She already had a plan. "Don't engage them directly. Fall back to the industrial district. Let them follow you." "Understood." "What are you planning, Hai?" "You'll see. Just trust me." She switched channels. "Sergeant Han, what's your status?" "Bored," Han replied. His voice was deep and rough. "These Krath fortifications are tough, but I've seen tougher. I could bring them down if you need." "I need," he said. "Remember those tunnels under the industrial district? The old subway system the Valari built?" "Yeah. What about them?" "Take your demo team down there. I'm sending you coordinates. You're going to collapse the Krath siege line from below." There was a pause. Then Han laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "I love the way you think, Captain. We're on it." This was what the galaxy didn't understand about humans. Other species fought with honor. They followed rules. They believed in fair combat. Humans had no such illusions. Humans fought to win. And they used every advantage they could find. The military academies on Earth had a saying, "If you're in a fair fight, You've already made a mistake. Pilot Wu, Hai continued, switching channels again. I need an emergency extraction. Coordinates incoming. Who am I extracting? Wu asked. Lieutenant J's unit. They rescued the refugee convoy, but now they're surrounded. The Krath have them pinned in an old stadium. How surrounded are we talking? Very. At least 500 Krath closing in. Wu whistled. That's going to be interesting. The stadium has walls, right? And probably guns shooting at it? Yes. Perfect. I'll come in hot from the south. Fast and low. Tell Jay to have everyone ready on the field. I'll give them 30 seconds to board. Then we're gone. Make it 20 seconds, he said. The Krath have anti-air weapons. Even better. I love a challenge. Hai leaned back in her chair. Chess pieces moving across a board. That's what warfare was. You just had to think 3 moves ahead. Down on the planet, the battles unfolded exactly as she predicted. Commander Tay and his unit retreated through the industrial district, the Krath chasing them eagerly. The enemy thought the humans were running away in fear. They didn't know they were being led into a trap. The Krath forces entered the district, moving between old factories and warehouses. They spread out, thinking they had the humans cornered. Then the ground beneath them collapsed. Sergeant Han and his team had placed charges in the subway tunnels, right under the Krath positions. When Han pushed the detonator, the entire district shook. Buildings fell. The ground opened up. 300 Krath soldiers dropped into darkness, buried under metal and concrete. The few who survived scrambled to escape. But Tay's unit was already moving back in, picking them off one by one. Nice work, Han, Tay said. Anytime, Commander. You want me to blow up anything else? Save your explosives. I'm sure we'll need them. At the stadium, Lieutenant J kept his soldiers calm despite the impossible odds. The Krath surrounded them on all sides. Energy weapons fired constantly, keeping the humans pinned down on the open field. The Valari refugees huddled together, terrified. Jay moved among them, checking for injuries, offering reassurance. We're not going to die here, Jay told them. His voice was confident, certain. Help is coming. One of the refugees, a young Valari named Orin, looked at him with wide eyes. How can you be sure? Because we're humans, Jay said simply. We don't leave people behind. Ever. Then they heard it. The sound of engines, coming fast. Wu's dropship appeared over the stadium walls, moving at a speed that should have been impossible. Krath weapons fired at it from all directions. The shields flared bright, absorbing hits that would have destroyed most ships. Wu twisted the dropship sideways, threading it between 2 support pillars, and brought it down on the stadium field with an impact that cracked the ground. The rear ramp dropped. Everybody on, now! Jay shouted. His soldiers moved like a machine. Efficient and fast. They herded the refugees up the ramp, while providing covering fire. Jay was last, counting heads, making sure no one was left behind. We're good, Jay shouted. 17 seconds, Wu said over the intercom. Not bad. Hold on to something. The dropship lifted off just as Krath soldiers breached the stadium walls. Wu flew straight up, then rolled the ship sideways, dodging a missile by centimeters. The refugees screamed. The soldiers whooped with excitement. Wu, you're crazy, Jay laughed. Yeah, but I'm alive, and so are you. Across the battlefield, Sniper Un sat perfectly still on her perch, watching the city through her scope. She had been in this position for 6 hours, barely moving, barely breathing. Most people couldn't stay still that long. But Un had patience that bordered on superhuman. She watched a Krath officer step out onto a balcony 2 kilometers away. The officer was giving orders, pointing at maps, directing troops. Un adjusted for wind, for gravity, for the planet's rotation. She exhaled slowly. Between heartbeats, she pulled the trigger. The bullet traveled 2 kilometers in under 3 seconds. The Krath officer fell, dead before he heard the shot. No one in the galaxy could shoot like humans. Other species had better technology. But humans had instinct. They had been hunters for millions of years. It was in their blood, in their bones. Target eliminated, Un reported, her voice emotionless. Good work, Hai replied. I have 14 more targets for you. Send them. Engineer Na worked in what used to be a Krath supply depot. She had captured it 3 hours ago, and immediately started tinkering with their equipment. The Krath thought their systems were secure, encrypted with codes that couldn't be broken. They were wrong. Na had broken into military systems on Earth. Systems designed by the smartest minds humanity had to offer. Krath encryption was child's play in comparison. She accessed their communications network, their supply logs, their tactical data, everything. Then she started making changes. Supply shipments were rerouted to wrong locations. Orders were scrambled. Communications were jammed. The Krath forces began to fall apart, not from direct combat, but from confusion and chaos. Nah, you're a genius, he said, watching the Krath forces on her maps stumbling around like blind animals. I know, Na replied without ego. She was just stating a fact. Elder Kova watched the battle from her council chamber, amazed. In just one day, the humans had done what seemed impossible. They had broken the Krath siege. They had rescued thousands of refugees. They had turned the tide of a war that was already lost. And they fought in ways the galaxy had never seen. Tunnels and traps, snipers from impossible distances, hacking and confusion, lightning-fast extractions and brutal ambushes. The Krath were stronger. The Krath had better weapons. But the humans were smarter, faster, more creative. They fought like water, flowing around obstacles, finding every weakness, exploiting every mistake. Orin stood beside her, the same young guard who had thought all hope was lost. Now his eyes shone with something new. They're teaching us, Orin said quietly. What do you mean? Kova asked. The humans. They're showing us how to fight, not with strength, but with intelligence, not with honor, but with victory. Kova nodded slowly. He was right. The human warriors were not just saving the Valari. They were teaching them a new way to survive. That night, Medic Sue worked in the field hospital, treating wounded from both sides. A young human soldier with a broken arm sat next to a Krath prisoner with a leg wound. Both watched her with different kinds of confusion. Why do you help them? The soldier asked, pointing at the Krath. They're the enemy. Because they're hurt, Sue said simply. That's enough reason. The Krath prisoner didn't speak, but its eyes followed her as she worked. It had never seen anything like this. In its culture, the wounded were left to die. Weakness was not tolerated, but this human, this small, soft creature, treated it with care. With kindness. The Krath didn't understand. But somewhere in its mind, a seed of doubt was planted. Maybe the humans weren't just stronger. Maybe they were better. Captain Hai watched her screens and allowed herself a small smile. The battle was far from over. But they were winning. Not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. This was Earth's doctrine. This was how humans fought. And the Krath were learning, too late, what it meant to face Earth's warriors. The Krath War Master stood in his command chamber aboard the flagship destroyer of worlds and tried to understand how he was losing. His name was unpronounceable in human tongues. A series of clicks and growls that meant death to all who resist. He had earned that name by conquering 12 civilizations. He had never retreated. He had never failed. Until now. Explain this to me again, he said to his tactical officer, his voice dangerously quiet. We have 50,000 soldiers on the ground. These humans have barely 10,000. We have superior weapons, superior armor, superior numbers. Yet you tell me we are losing ground. The tactical officer trembled. Showing fear before the War Master was dangerous, but lying was worse. The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered, War Master. They do not hold positions. They are everywhere. They strike from unexpected angles. They collapse our fortifications from below. They attack our supply lines. Enough. The War Master slammed his 4 fists on the command table. They are smaller than us. Weaker than us. How can they be winning? But he knew the answer. even if he didn't want to admit it. The humans were not winning through strength. They were winning through intelligence and unpredictability. They were winning because they refused to fight the way the Krath expected, and they were doing something else, something that disturbed the War Master more than he wanted to admit. They were treating Krath prisoners with mercy. Reports came in daily of wounded Krath soldiers being treated by human medics, being given food and water, being spoken to with respect, not contempt. This was not how war was supposed to work. The conquered were supposed to be crushed, not cared for. "Sir," another officer interrupted, "the humans have broadcast something across all our communication channels." "What is it? A surrender demand?" "No, sir. It is music." The War Master stared at him. "Music?" The officer activated the recording. Sound filled the command chamber. It was unlike anything the Krath had heard before. Drums beating like a war rhythm, guitars screaming, human voices shouting in their harsh language. It was aggressive, violent, primal. It spoke of battle and fury, and an unstoppable will. The Krath soldiers listening to it felt something they had never felt before. Not respect, not even fear exactly, but something close to both. These humans were warriors, true warriors, in a way the Krath had thought only they could be. "Turn it off," the War Master ordered. "Sir, it's on all channels. We cannot block it. The humans have control of our communication network." The War Master felt something cold in his chest. If the humans could infiltrate their systems, then nothing was secure. Every order could be intercepted. Every plan could be known. He was fighting blind against an enemy who saw everything. "War Master!" A new officer burst into the chamber. "Emergency report from the ground. The humans have captured Outpost 7. "Impossible. Outpost 7 has 5,000 soldiers and heavy fortifications." "Yes, sir. The humans used only 200 soldiers. They turned our own defenses against us." The War Master pulled up the tactical recording. He watched as a small team of humans, led by someone named Engineer Na, infiltrated the outpost's computer systems. Within minutes, the automated turrets stopped firing at humans and started firing at Krath. The doors locked, trapping soldiers in their own base. The shields dropped. Then the human soldiers moved in, precise and lethal. It was over in 15 minutes. The War Master felt something he had not felt in decades. Not since he was young and unproven. He felt doubt. On the ground, Commander Tay met with Elder Kova in what remained of the council chamber. The building was damaged but still standing. Valari workers were already repairing it, hope returning to their movements. "Commander, I do not know how to express our gratitude," Kova said. She looked different now. Stronger. The despair was gone from her eyes. "In 3 days, you have driven the Krath back further than we managed in 6 months. We're not done yet," Tay said. "They still have their flagship in orbit and significant ground forces. But we're making progress." "How do you do it?" Kova asked. "The Krath are stronger than us. Stronger than you, if I may say so. Yet you defeat them again and again." Tay considered the question. "Strength isn't everything, Elder. The strongest animal isn't always the best hunter. We humans learned that millions of years ago on our homeworld. We were small and weak compared to the predators that hunted us. So we learned to be smart. We learned to work together. We learned to use tools and tactics and creativity." He gestured to the window, where human and Valari soldiers now worked side by side. "The Krath rely on strength and fear, but we're not afraid, and we know how to turn their strength against them." Orin entered the chamber, now wearing human combat armor adapted for Valari physiology. He looked different, moved different, more confident. "Elder Kova, Commander Tay, we have volunteers, 300 Valari who want to join the fight." Tay looked at them carefully. "Have they been trained?" "Lieutenant J has been teaching them human tactics, basic combat, how to move, how to think like humans." Kova looked worried. "Commander, my people are not warriors. We are builders, farmers, artists. We will only slow you down." "No," Tay said firmly. "Your people are survivors, And we're going to teach you to be more than that. We're going to teach you to be dangerous. Over the next 2 days, something remarkable happened. The Valari, who had thought of themselves as peaceful and weak, began to change. They learned to fight not with brute strength, but with intelligence. They learned to set ambushes. They learned to exploit terrain. They learned the most important lesson humans could teach them. They learned to never give up. Sergeant Han sat with a group of Valari volunteers, showing them how to use explosives. "Okay, listen up," Han said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Explosives are simple. You just need to understand 3 things: placement, timing, and running really fast afterward." The Valari laughed nervously. Han grinned. "You're going to be fine. Trust me, if I can do this, anyone can." One of the Valari, a young female named Sarah, raised her hand. "Sergeant Han, why do humans help us? You gain nothing from this fight. You could have ignored our call like everyone else." Han was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because that's not who we are. Humans have a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We heard your call. We had the power to help, so we came. It's that simple." Sarah looked at him with wonder. "Your species is strange, but I think we want to be more like you." "Nah," Han said. "Be like yourselves. Just be the best version of yourselves. That's all anyone can do." In orbit, Captain Hai prepared for the next phase of the battle. The Krath flagship was the key. As long as it remained in orbit, the Krath could reinforce their ground troops and bombard from space. It had to be taken out. She called Sergeant Han. "Han, I need your expertise on something crazy." "My favorite kind of thing," Han replied. "What are we blowing up?" "A Krath flagship." There was a pause. Then Han laughed. "You want me to blow up a ship that's 5 kilometers long and has shields that can withstand orbital bombardment?" "Yes." "How?" "We're going to give it to you." Hai explained the plan. It was insane, risky, and had about a dozen ways to go catastrophically wrong. Han loved it. "When do we start?" he asked. "Tonight." The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. The humans would capture a Krath supply ship and load it with every explosive they could find. Then Pilot Wu would fly it up to the flagship on autopilot, claiming to be damaged and requesting docking permission. Once the ship was inside the flagship's hangar, the explosives would detonate. Simple, crazy, very human. As night fell over Valaris Prime, the plan began. Wu prepped the captured ship, loading it with enough explosives to crack a mountain. "You know," Wu said to Han, "if this goes wrong, we're all going to be famous." "Famous for what?" Han asked. "The biggest explosion in the history of stupid plans." Han grinned. "Then let's make sure it goes right." The Krath War Master watched as one of his supply ships approached the flagship, broadcasting a distress signal. It appeared damaged, trailing smoke. "Should we allow it to dock, War Master?" his officer asked. The War Master hesitated. Something felt wrong. But they needed supplies. The humans had disrupted most of their supply lines. "Allow it," he finally said. The ship entered the hangar. Krath workers moved to unload it. Then, it exploded. The blast tore through the flagship's interior like a dying star. Explosions chained through ammunition stores and fuel tanks. The entire central section of the ship cracked open, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. The War Master survived only because he was in a heavily shielded section. But his flagship, his pride, his symbol of Krath power, was crippled and dying. On the ground, humans and Valari alike looked up and cheered as the massive ship began to break apart in orbit. Commander Tay received the report and nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent work, everyone. Now for the final push. Tomorrow, we end this." The Krath had learned strength. They had learned conquest. But tonight, they learned fear. And they learned that when you face humans, you face something that will never stop, never surrender, and never leave their friends behind. The Krath War Master stood among the ruins of his flagship and knew he had 2 choices. He could order a retreat and live with the shame, or he could destroy Valaris Prime completely, burning the planet from orbit even if it meant losing everything. He chose destruction. All remaining ships, he commanded. Prepare planetary bombardment weapons. We will turn this world to ash. If he could not have victory, he would have vengeance. But Commander Tay had been expecting this. Captain Hai had predicted it days ago. When an enemy felt cornered and humiliated, they became either cautious or desperate. The Krath were not cautious creatures. All units, this is Tay, he broadcast to every human and Valari soldier on the planet. Final operation is now active. You know your positions. You know your roles. Today we finish this. In orbit, the remaining Krath ships began to move into bombardment positions. They were damaged from the fighting, but still dangerous. They had enough firepower to level the capital city. But they had to get through the human fleet first. The EDS Horizon and her sister ships moved to intercept. Captain Hai sat in the command center, her fingers dancing across controls, coordinating multiple battles at once. Target their weapon systems first, she ordered. Don't let them get a shot at the planet. Human ships were smaller than Krath vessels, but faster and more maneuverable. They darted between the enemy ships like sharks, striking at weak points, disrupting formations. On the ground, Commander Tay led the final assault. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. While the Krath focused on the orbital battle, the humans and their Valari allies would storm the last major Krath stronghold on the planet, a fortress on the edge of the capital. That fortress was where the Krath War Master had his ground command center. Take it, and the Krath would have no coordination, no leadership, no hope. Lieutenant J, you take the east wall with the Valari volunteers. Show them what you've taught them. Yes, sir, Jay responded. He looked at Orin and the other Valari soldiers. They looked nervous but determined. Remember, move fast, stay low, and watch each other's backs. We're not just soldiers anymore. We're a pack. We hunt together. The Valari nodded. They had learned much from the humans. Not just tactics, but philosophy. Humans hunted as a group. They protected each other. They never left anyone behind. Sergeant Han, the front gate is yours. Be subtle. Han laughed. Subtle isn't really my style, Commander. I know. That's why I'm sending you there. Han and his demolition team moved to the fortress's massive front gate. The gate was 20 meters high, made of reinforced metal that could withstand tank fire. Han looked at it, then looked at the amount of explosives his team carried. You know what? He said. I think we brought just enough. They placed charges in a specific pattern. One Han had designed himself. Not just to blow the door open, but to blow it inward, turning it into a massive projectile that would crush anything behind it. Fire in the hole, Han shouted. The explosion was tremendous. The gate didn't just open, it launched like a missile into the fortress, crushing vehicles and fortifications. That was beautiful, Han said, wiping a tear from his eye. Let's go. At the east wall, Jay and the Valari used a completely different approach. They climbed. The Krath had never considered that anyone would scale the walls because most species couldn't, but the Valari were light and agile, and the humans had given them climbing gear. They went up in silence, reaching the top before the guards even noticed. Then Jay gave the signal. The Valari attacked with a fury that surprised even themselves. They had been peaceful for so long, they had forgotten that their ancestors had been survivors, had fought to build their civilization against harsh conditions. Now they remembered. Orin fought alongside Jay, using tactics the human had taught him. He was not as strong as the Krath, but he was faster. He used their size against them, staying low, striking at joints and weak points. A Krath soldier swung at him with a massive weapon. Orin rolled under it, came up behind the creature, and struck at the nerve cluster in its lower back. The Krath fell, paralyzed. Good work, Jay shouted. Keep moving. Sniper Un provided cover from a distant building, her rifle singing its deadly song. Every shot was a Krath officer, a weapons operator, a commander. She was methodical, precise, perfect. 16 targets eliminated, she reported calmly. They're starting to panic. Engineer Na had infiltrated the fortress's computer systems hours ago. Now she activated her final surprise. Every automated defense in the fortress turned against the Krath. Turrets, blast doors, communications, all of it suddenly working for the humans. Systems compromised, Na reported. They're blind and confused. Medic Sue set up a field station just outside the fortress walls. Wounded soldiers, both human and Valari, came to her. She worked with calm efficiency, saving lives even as the battle raged. A wounded Krath soldier was brought to her by a Valari volunteer. The Krath was conscious, staring at Sue with confusion. Why? It rasped in broken common language. Why heal enemy? Sue looked at it while she worked. Because you're hurt. And because maybe, after today, we won't be enemies anymore. Inside the fortress, Commander Tay fought through corridors, his team behind him. They were close now. The War Master's command center was just ahead. The door burst open. The Krath War Master stood there, massive and terrible, holding a weapon designed to kill armored vehicles. Human. The War Master growled. You have cost me everything. My fleet. My army. My honor. I will take your life as payment. Tay lowered his rifle. Put the weapon down. This doesn't have to end in more death. You think you have won? You think destroying one fleet matters? The Krath Empire spans 100 worlds. More will come. Then we'll be here. Tay said simply. And every time you try to hurt innocent people, we'll stop you. Again and again. Forever if we have to. The War Master roared and fired. Tay dove to the side, the blast missing him by centimeters. His team returned fire, but the War Master's personal shields absorbed the hits. Then Pilot Wu crashed through the window in a small assault craft, weapons blazing. The surprise attack broke the War Master's shields. Sorry I'm late, Wu shouted. Traffic was terrible. Tay ran forward as the War Master staggered. He struck with his combat knife, fast and precise, cutting the tendons in the War Master's lower arms. The creature fell to its knees, weapon clattering to the floor. Tay pointed his rifle at the War Master's head. One shot, and it would be over. But he didn't fire. Look outside, Tay said. The War Master turned. Through the broken window, he could see the battlefield. His forces were scattered, broken. Human and Valari soldiers worked together, securing the fortress. Medical teams treated the wounded, even Krath prisoners. And in orbit, the Krath fleet was in full retreat, chased by human ships. You lost, Tay said. Not because we were stronger. Because we were right. You came here to conquer and destroy. We came to help and protect. That's the difference. The War Master said nothing. What could he say? This is over, Tay continued. Take your remaining forces and leave. Tell your empire what happened here. Tell them what happens when they meet humans. Tell them we protect those who cannot protect themselves. You are sparing me? The War Master sounded disbelieving. Yes. Because we're not you. We're better. Now go. The Krath War Master rose slowly. He looked at Tay with something that might have been respect. Then he turned and walked away. His empire's pride shattered but his life intact. 2 days later, the Krath were gone. Their ships jumped away, leaving Valaris Prime in peace for the first time in months. Elder Kova invited Commander Tay to the council chamber. The building had been repaired, and now it was full of Valari citizens who wanted to see the humans who had saved them. Commander Tay, Kova said formally, the Valari people owe you a debt that cannot be repaid. We offer you anything. Territory, resources, technology, an eternal alliance. Name it, and it is yours. Tay looked at his team. Hai, Jay, Han, Su, Wu, Un, Na. They had fought together, bled together. Some hadn't made it home, but they had done what they came to do. We don't want payment, Elder, Tay said. We came because you asked for help. That's all the reason we needed. But surely, there is one thing, Tay interrupted. The Krath will return someday. Maybe not here, but somewhere. When they do, I hope the Valari will remember what we taught you. Stand together, fight smart, never give up, and most importantly, help others when they call. Kova wiped tears from her eyes. We will remember. We will teach our children about the day Earth's warriors descended from the sky. We will tell them that when all hope was lost, humans came simply because it was right. Oren stepped forward, now wearing a modified human uniform. He saluted Tay in the human style. Commander, I have a request. I wish to come with you. To learn more. To help others, as you helped us. Tay looked at him carefully. It won't be easy. There will be other battles. Other wars. I know. But I learned something from you. I learned that peace is worth fighting for. I want to fight for it. Tay smiled and returned the salute. Welcome aboard, soldier. The human ships prepared to leave. On the ground, Valari citizens gathered to wave goodbye. They played human music. The same aggressive war songs that had confused and frightened the Krath. But now, they understood. It was not just music of war. It was music of defiance, of refusing to give up, of protecting those you love. As the EDS Horizon pulled away from Valaris Prime, Captain High sat at her station, already planning the next mission. There were other distress calls waiting. Other civilizations that needed help. Where to next, Commander? She asked. Tay looked at the star map. Dozens of signals. Hundreds of worlds. Some would be easy. Some would be impossible. But that had never stopped humans before. Wherever we're needed, he said. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, other civilizations monitored a new frequency. It had appeared suddenly, broadcasting from the edge of known space. The message was simple, repeated in every major language. This is Earth. We are humanity. If you need help, we will come. No matter how far. No matter how dangerous. You are not alone. Humanity answers. Some civilizations dismissed it as impossible. Some thought it was a trap. But others, those who were desperate and afraid, those who had been abandoned by everyone else, listened. And when they called, humans came. Every time. The age of Earth's warriors had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.